Okay, Jeremy, Adele will explain later how to access the recordings.
Okay, sorry guys, sorry I was on mute.
Sorry, Adele.
Jeremy, okay, I will post the link in this section, but normally if you go onto my UNISA and you click on my modules and then your sites, you look for the Western Cape region, you click on that, and then remember this module belongs to the Writing Center, so not tutorials, not the Numeracy Center, the Writing Center. If you click there, you will also see a variety of tabs, and one of those tabs is the link to click on where you will find the recordings. But I will post that more direct link for you in this section, and then you can access it from here. Okay, just copy and paste the link to your device so that you have it in future. Thank you, Owen. Owen, I think you're on mute now.
Sorry, I just
Not a
unmuted
problem.
myself. Thanks, Adele. Students, let me continue the discussion of last week. Okay, and I gave you some history to do. So I just want us to, as an introduction, start on page 68 of our course reader. So all of you, page 68 of the course reader, please. And as Adele said, please add your student numbers into the chat function for us. So that's for record and attendance purposes. So if all of you are at page 68, okay, we are just quickly going to do how the body, and yeah, I'm talking of the substantive body of law, is divided. Okay, so on page 68, you will notice that our body of law is divided into two parts. Okay, the first part is public law, and the second part is private law. And we're going to this is what we're first going to concentrate on this morning. And very, very importantly, our body of public law is divided firstly into international law. Now, the type of international law I'm talking about relates to public international law, where South Africa as a country enters into various treaties with other countries relating to its international obligations. So one example, I'm just going to explain one example here. One international treaty South Africa is a party to is the Hague Convention. Okay, the Hague Convention relating to children's rights, meaning that I'm going to give you an example of two countries. Let's take South Africa and the United Kingdom. So let's say you have parties in South Africa that are at a dispute. And when I refer to parties, I refer to parents, mother and father. They are possibly entering into divorce proceedings, and as part of those divorce proceedings, there is a dispute with regard to access and care of minor children. Let's say the mother has a British passport as well. And what she does is she just takes the minor children, puts them on a plane, and goes to the United Kingdom. Okay, so in terms of the Hague Convention, the father, as a co-holder of rights, can now make use of our international law obligations, and in terms of a treaty, he can compel the mother to return those children to their country of origin, meaning from the United Kingdom to South Africa. Meaning, in terms of this international treaty, the authorities in the United Kingdom will help the South African Central Authority here dealing with children to return those children to South Africa. So all of this is regulated in terms of a treaty. Okay, our branch of constitutional law also forms part of our body of public law. Why? Because it's normally an organ of state or a government department that is involved in constitutional law litigation. Another division of public law is administrative law, and you will see we deal with criminal law as well. Okay, remember, the state has an obligation to protect its citizens. So when a citizen or an inhabitant in this country is the subject of crime, the victim of crime, the state removes that victim from the legal process and steps into his or her shoes. Okay, so criminal law also, and then we have our body of procedural law. Okay, and that is the law of civil procedure, the law of criminal procedure, as well as the law of evidence. I'm going to remember this module concentrates on private law aspects. So our discussion will relate this morning mostly to our body of private law. Okay. Many of you in this group, you do the law of persons with me. So private law relating to the law of persons is a branch of law that relates to the rights of the legal subject, that is you and me. Another division of private law is family law, the law of patrimony, and that is further subdivided in the law of property, the law of succession, the law of obligations. Okay, and those are things we're going to be speaking on now for a while. Okay, so I'd like you to go to page 69, and we quickly going to start with our discussion. Before I start, are there any questions? Any questions for me? You can either raise your hands or type your question into the chat function. Any questions? Okay, Terence, you raised your hand. You may unmute your mic and pose your question.
Good morning, Advocate Kleinas. I just wanted to know, are you reading anyway from the study guide or was it from the reader, which I don't have? Hello?
Terence, I'm reading from the reader, so with Learning Unit 5, which is the Division of Law. Do you have that with you?
I don't have all I have is the study guide in front of me. I don't have the reader because I wasn't sent the reader at all. So
okay,
I don't know what.
Terence, I can do
Yeah.
Terence, I can do the following for you quickly. If you let me just see how to do it. If you give me an email address, I can email it to you quickly.
Okay.
Terence, do me a favor. Type your email address into the chat function for me quickly, and then I'll quickly email it to you while we're sitting here. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, Bianca, if you didn't get it, just type in your student number. I'll just do an email to a few of you quickly, then all of you have it.
Owen?
Yes, Adele?
Just, I'd like to know from the students if none of them have received the reader. I'll tell you
Students,
what.
just indicate to Adele.
Have you received the reader?
Sorry, no, I have to receive the reader, Adele. No.
You have?
I have not.
Okay, what I want to know is there anybody else that has not received the reader? Just put up your hand.
Adele, will you also check the chat function? Students are responding via there. So
Okay.
for now, just enter your email addresses because I'm on email now. I can send it to a few of you.
Okay, Owen, I see already a lot of hands going up, and I think it might have been a message on my UNISA about the reader. Am I correct, Terence?
Yes, that's correct. We were told we were not going to get it this semester.
Okay, Owen?
Adele, what are you suggesting?
No, if you want them to work from the reader, you can always send the link. But I think the message went out that they should not worry about the reader. There will be no questions on the reader. So if it's still not available on my UNISA, then they don't have to worry about the reader. But if you want to use it in class, absolutely, then you can mail them the link. You can mail them the link.
Okay. What I'm going to do is the Terence, I'm going to send it to you. Okay. And while I'm busy, check the chat function and just forward it to everyone who's requesting it.
Sure,
okay?
will do. Yeah.
So, okay. Give me a minute. I'll just type in your 68525. 525 311 at mylife.unisa. Someone must switch their mic off, eh? So just switch your mics off. And okay, Terence, I'm sending it to you now. Just forward it to everyone in the chat while I'm busy doing the discussion. Okay? Sent. So once you get it, I want you to, I'll just guide you. I'll let you know where I am. So currently, I'm on page 69 of this reader. Terence will just send it to the rest of you. I'll give Terence a minute to do so. Okay?
Someone's microphone is off. Oh, okay. Switch off the microphone.
I still don't have it.
Okay, Terence, just give it a minute or so because it's a bulky document. So um, it will probably take a few minutes. No? So I'm going to continue so long until Terence gets it. And then what you do so long is you can take notes so long. At the end of the session, I will email this to everyone who sent the email addresses. Then it will be ready for next week. Okay? So, students, firstly, public law regulates relationships that are concerned firstly with public interest. Okay? Meaning that relates to the interest of the community. So very, very importantly, public law deals with the relationship between the state and the subject of the state. Now, normally the subject of the state is referred to as the citizen. So let me give you an example. If someone then commits a crime, very, very importantly, this crime or this act goes against the interest of the community and therefore it is punishable. So such an act becomes the concern of public law. I'm going to repeat myself. Okay. Firstly, public law regulates relationships that are concerned with public interest, meaning the interest of the community. Hence, very, very importantly, public law therefore deals with the relationship between the state firstly, the state is the one party, and the subject of the state. The subject of the state is the other party, meaning the citizen. So here's an example. If someone commits a crime, okay, this crime or this act goes against the interest of the community, and normally it is punishable. There is a punitive aspect to it. Okay, hence this act becomes the concern of public law. Do all of you have that? Do all of you have that? Do all of you have that? Okay. Terence, I just went to my mailbox. I went to my sent items and it's sent from my side.
Yeah, I haven't.
So,
I'm busy typing in the addresses now, so
okay.
they should get
So,
it in the next couple of minutes. Yeah.
okay. So, once you get it, I'll just tell you which page to go to. Okay. So, I'm going to go to the next definition so long. And there's no questions on the definition of public law. Now I'm going to go to the definition of private law. So, very, very importantly, students, and this is going to be part of our focus today, is that private law deals with a relationship between private individuals, meaning between legal subject and legal subject, that is me and you. So, for example, a man and a woman decides to get married, okay? The marriage relationship is governed by private law, meaning family law, the Marriages Act, okay? Another example, the relationship between an employee and an employer is governed by an employment contract. Okay? So, quickly, I'm going to do some subdivisions of public law. And I said, firstly, our first branch of public law is public international law. And this branch of law is concerned with the relationship between states. Okay? And when I refer to the term states, it's normally the relationship between different countries. Okay? The next branch of law, someone's mic is on. Just Terence, thank you. The next branch of public law is constitutional law. And constitutional law is concerned with the institution of the state, meaning how a state is formed and its organization. Furthermore, it also governs the powers of the organs of state, meaning the parliament, the courts, and the cabinet, and so on. Thirdly, administrative law controls the administration of the state in general, meaning this branch of law determines the way in which state bodies, state departments, and numerous boards, okay, should exercise their powers in relationship to the citizens. Those of you who have the course reader, I am on page 70 of the course reader.
Advocate Owen, I've sent the emails. If you can, I've sent the whole readers. It's 13 megabytes of data. I've sent the information to the students.
Okay, so they should receive it soon.
Should receive it soon. Yeah.
Okay, so those of you who have received it, I'm on page 70 of that reader. Okay, our next branch of Public Law, which I quickly want to go through, is our branch of criminal law. And criminal law states, very, very importantly, it defines, it gives a definition to acts which are crimes. So in South Africa, our acts which are defined as crimes are either regulated by legislation, okay? For example, we have the Sexual Offences Act, okay? We have an act which relates to drugs and drug trafficking, and then it can be an act which is regulated by the common law, such as murder, attempted murder, assault common, okay? Those are common law crimes. Another common law crime is the crime of fraud, okay? So an act must be defined as a crime. Also, very importantly, it must also state which penalties or punishments are imposed by the state for the commission of a crime. Okay? It is also important to know that our criminal law provides a legal definition, students, for every crime. Okay, Richard, you raised your hand. What is the question? Terence, you may switch off your mic so long.
Sorry.
Richard?
Hello. Hi, Owen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure, man. Sorry to interrupt you. I thought we were on PVL 1501, and I see the reader that have been sent is for ILW 1501. So can you just clear me on that one?
I'm busy with ILW. PVL is the law of persons.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, Richard, we into this lesson now. So what has happened is you actually correct. We should have done the law of persons because ILW is my Tuesday subject. So I will continue with ILW for now, and with the assistance of Adele, we'll send out a communique just to make up for this morning session. So if you don't do ILW or you're not registered for ILW, then you might as well disconnect from the session. Then you can just check the emails to, we'll tell you when the makeup session will be. I'll just bring this to Adele's attention also now. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Thank you very much then, Owen. I'll just log out. Thanks, man.
Okay. Adele, are you there? Okay, students, one announcement. I'm going to wait on Adele also to give us direction. But we should have, this morning, I should have been doing the law of persons. But we actually logged in for introduction to law. Okay, so meaning this week we have 2 sessions for introduction to law. Okay, it's not a train smash, so I'll continue with introduction to law for this session, and then I'll just take guidance from Adele on how to make up for law of persons. Richard, do you still have a question?
No, sorry, I'm just trying to log out. No, I don't have any question. Thank you, Owen.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, so all of you who has the course reader, I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to go to page 70. Okay, and I'm going to skip firstly, I'll come back to that in a later discussion. I'm going to skip the procedural aspect of the law for now. So I'm going to skip the law of civil procedure. I'm going to skip the law of criminal procedure as well as the law of evidence. And I'm going to go to our divisions of private law. So as I stated a few minutes ago, is that private law regulates the relationship between private individuals. That is between the one legal subject and the other legal subject. Okay, I will later also do a discussion on the various actions in terms of private law. There are two, but I'll do that discussion later as well. So I'm on the bottom of page 70, paragraph 5.4. So if you have the reader, page 70, paragraph 5.4. And the first division of private law, I said, is the law of persons. And this branch of law, and this is the module we should have been doing now, deals with the person as a subject, meaning we deal with the legal subject, we deal with birth, we deal with its status, meaning its legal position, and how the person comes, how that legal position comes to an end. So we also deal with issues such as death. Next branch of private law is family law, and very, very importantly, family law is concerned with that legal relationship between spouses. So we're dealing with the law of marriage, the legal relationship between parent and child, okay, that's part of family law. And very, very importantly, the Children's Act deals with parental rights and responsibility. We're going to be dealing with the law of personality, meaning the law of personality is concerned with personality rights. And these are rights, for example, related to our body, our reputation, and our reputation and our dignity. So that also relates to the law of damages, how you can sue for damages, and you're going to deal with the law of delict in that regard. The next one, and this law is subdivided, okay? So the law of patrimony, here we're dealing with money. The relationship in terms of this law is concerned with a person, that's the legal subject, and their means, okay? So the means in law, okay, relates to what a person owns or possesses, and which can be given a money value, okay? And the first subdivision of this law is called the law of things or the law of property. So the law of property or the law of things, okay, concerns itself with the classification of movable or immovable things or property. Meaning, movable things or movable property are those property that can be moved from one place to another without being damaged. Meaning, here we're talking about your cell phone, your laptop, a book, a car, or even a wooden structure. Immovable property are things that cannot be moved and they are fixed, like land and what is attached to that land, normally a house. Okay? And relating to the law of property. Okay, an aspect relating to the law of property is ownership. And ownership is considered to be the most comprehensive right in property. Okay? And this right is referred to as a real right. I'm going to go to the next right, which is called the law of succession. Okay, the law of succession is concerned with who inherits from a person once he or she dies. Okay, in other words, who receives the property of the deceased and how that deceased estate is managed. And the law of succession is divided into two branches. Okay, and the first branch is the law of testate succession. So when it comes to the law of testate succession, we normally deal here with a person who dies and who has a written will in place. Okay, therefore, the law of testate succession will apply, and the will, the valid written will regulate what happens to the deceased person's property. When it comes to the law of intestate succession, it means that we have a person here who passes away without a will. Hence, the rules of intestate succession will apply. Okay, meaning the person has not left a valid will or the person dies in the absence of a valid will. Any questions? Any questions for me? Okay, if there's no questions, I'm going to continue. Let me just see the chat function. Okay. We go to the law of obligations. And firstly, we're going to see what an obligation is, people. So, in terms of private law, an obligation can be defined as the legal relationship between two or more parties in terms of which each party has a mutual right against the other party for performance, and each party has a corresponding duty to perform. I'm going to repeat myself, and this will become clearer once we go into the different sub-branches of the law of obligation. So firstly, the law of obligations for it to exist or for it to operate, there must be at least two parties. Okay, meaning an obligation is a legal relationship between two or more parties. Okay, firstly, the first part of that relationship, okay, where each party has a mutual right against the other party for performance, and each party has a corresponding duty to perform. So in terms of the law of obligations, there are performance and there are obligations. So let's look at the first subdivision, and we're looking at the law of contract. So in terms of the law of contract, okay, a contract is an agreement, again, between two or more parties in terms of which mutual obligations, firstly, the first part of those mutual obligations is the right to performance, and a corresponding duty to perform comes into existence. And here's an example where we look at an agreement of sale. For example, if Tom wants to buy a car from Jane, Tom is regarded as the buyer of the car and has a right to delivery of that car. Jane, being the other party who is the seller of the car, has the duty to deliver it. Simultaneously, Jane has the right to receive payment, and Tom, on the other hand, has the duty to pay for the car. Meaning, the law of contract therefore deals with the requirement for the conclusion of valid contracts between parties. Okay? Any questions? Any questions for me? Any questions? So I'm on page 72 of the reader, and I'm just going to quickly go through the law of delict. So, in short, you can write this down. A delict is regarded as a civil wrong. Okay? Meaning, a delict is an unlawful act by one party that causes damages to another party. Okay? So, a delict is therefore an unlawful act by one party that causes damage to another party. Okay? The party who suffers damage will want to claim damages or compensation from the party who caused it. Meaning, a delict therefore also creates an obligation, namely a right to claim compensation, and a corresponding party has the duty to compensate. Okay, so for example, Perez, without exercising proper care, negligently reverses into my car, causing 50,000 rands damage. Okay, I suffered the loss because there's damage to my car, and I have now the right to claim damages from Perez. Okay, why? Because Perez's negligent actions caused me and my property to suffer a loss. Okay? Then on your own, I want you to go through the other areas of law, which is mercantile law, labor law, etc., etc. Are there any questions for me? If there's no questions, I want us quickly to go back to page 70 and deal with procedural law. Any questions? Any questions? Are there no questions for me? If there's no questions, I want to proceed to our procedural law. And our procedural law consists out of 3 branches, okay? Known as the law of civil procedure, the law of criminal procedure, as well as the law of evidence. The law of civil procedure, students, okay, tells us that there are certain processes, proceedings, or methods by which private law disputes are brought before the courts. Okay? The rules of civil procedure are concerned with these processes, meaning the rules of court will prescribe, for example, how a summons must be served on another party and how and when pleadings must be drawn up. Okay? Next, the law of criminal procedure. This part of procedural law is concerned with the way in which someone who is suspected of having committed a crime is prosecuted and tried in a court of law. Okay? Then lastly, the law of evidence is concerned with how evidence must be presented before a court. Okay? It also prescribes how witnesses must give their evidence in court and what kinds of evidence are admissible. So, in terms of evidence, students, presented in court, very, very importantly, you can write this down. There are 3 forms of evidence. Okay? We deal with 3 forms of evidence in a court of law. Firstly, we speak of real evidence. Okay? Real evidence example is the gun used to commit the murder, the knife used to commit the stabbing. Real evidence. Then, the second type of evidence is documentary evidence. Okay, so here we speak of crime scene photographs, sketches, contracts, stuff like that, documentary evidence. And then the third form of evidence is known as oral evidence. Oral evidence, or the Latin term evidence viva voce. I'll type it into the chat function. Okay. Evidence viva voce, where a witness is sworn into the witness box and that witness gives oral evidence. Evidence viva voce. Any questions for me so far? Any questions? Any questions? If there's no questions, I will tell you which page to go to. Okay, I want us then to turn to page 100. Are all of you on page 100? Okay, and page 100 speaks of the sources of law. And I've spoken about sources of law in Skills for Law students. So I'm just briefly going to go through it. And for our purposes as lawyers, law students, and legal practitioners, okay, we are guided, or our tools of law. Remember, we are solvers. This is what a lawyer does. And this is how we train you in legal studies, is that we are solvers of legal disputes. Meaning, when there are legal disputes between parties, okay, we as lawyers need to find a solution to it. Okay? And that solution is found in our sources of law. So, in South African law, okay, firstly, before I go to the various sources of law, I need to tell you what our legal body of law is divided into. So, for our purposes, students, our body of law can be described as, or it's known as, a hybrid system of law. I'll type it into the chat function. It's known as a hybrid system of law. Now, anybody, I need to engage with you now. You now need to raise your hands or use the chat function. What does the term hybrid law, a system of hybrid law, mean? What does it mean to you, students?
It's a mixed law of
Okay.
two or more different systems.
Thank you, Terence. Terence, you may switch off your mic. Terence is saying it's a mixed system consisting out of two systems. Can I have some more comments, please? Okay, I need at least 3 more comments. Let me check the chat function. Okay, so my only comment is from Terence, where he's stating that it's a mixed function of law which consists out of two systems at least. So, Terence, you are correct. The South African legal system is referred to as a hybrid system for the reason that our body of law is made up of two distinctive parts. The first part is regarded as our uncodified body of law. Okay, so our first part is regarded as our uncodified body of law. I'm putting it into the chat function. It's regarded as our uncodified body of law. And what this means is another term for our uncodified body of law is our unwritten body of law, meaning this body of law is not written down, but it can be found in various legal principles. And examples of our uncodified body of law is our common law, as well as African customary law, as well as custom. Those are examples of our uncodified body of law. So, sources of law in South African law which are uncodified, that is our common law, African customary law, as well as custom. Okay, and then we move over to our next part. Remember, a hybrid system is a mixed system and it consists of at least two parts. So, our uncodified body of law is the part that is not written down. Our next part of law is our codified body of law, and that is known as our written law. Okay, and an example of our written law, which we also refer to as paper law, is legislation. That is law that is written down. And legislation is divided into three parts. Okay, national legislation, which is legislation that is binding on the entire country. And an example of this is our Divorce Act, our Marriages Act, our Children's Act, our Constitution. Okay, it's binding on the entire country and it's enacted by Parliament, our legislature. Our second part of legislation is provincial legislation, which is enacted by every province, the provincial legislature, and this is legislation binding on a province only. So you will notice that our 9 provinces have various have different legislative mandates, or when it comes to issues such as licensing, because you will see every province has different number plates. Um, the licensing of vehicles, the cost is not the same in each province. So each province regulates its own issues relating to an aspect of licensing, for instance. And then our country is further divided into various municipalities. And here we're talking of municipal laws, or we refer to it as municipal bylaws. Okay, and this relates to issues affecting various municipalities, such as refuge removal, things like that. Okay, any questions for me so far? So, legislation is an example of our codified law. And a second example is our judicial precedent, okay? The judgments of our courts. And remember, judgments of our courts are written down and it's handed down by judges. So it is recorded somewhere, and these judgments can be found in various law reports. Okay, in one of my discussions in the week, we referred to law reports, and examples of our law reports are the criminal law reports, the South African law reports, the South African constitutional law reports, etc., etc. Um, any questions for me so far? Any questions? There's nothing in the chat function. So if there's nothing, I'm going to continue with how in our hybrid system, what our sources of law consist out of. So I told you that we as legal practitioners or as law students, our main function is to solve legal disputes. Okay, and we solve legal disputes by making use of our primary sources of law. So why do we go to our primary sources of law? The reason why we have to consult primary sources of law is that these sources of law are sources of authority. So we have to consult them. We don't have any option. It is mandatory. Why? Because they are sources of authority and they are binding. Okay? So we have to consult them. And our sources of law in South African law are 5. Okay? We deal with 5 sources of authority. Okay? Our first source of, and it's regarded as the most important primary source of law, okay, is legislation. Okay, I've explained to you that legislation is enacted at 3 levels: national, provincial, as well as municipal. And this is part of codified law. The second primary source of law is judicial precedent or decided court cases. Okay, the Latin term for it is known as stare decisis, and translated in English it means let the decision stand. Okay, so that's also part of codified law. Our next primary source of law is our common law. Okay, these are legal principles which stems from English, Roman, and Dutch law. It's a combination of English law, Roman law, and Dutch law. Okay, these are unwritten legal principles. Fourthly, African customary law. Okay, many of our African communities in our country is regulated by customary law, and then this is also an uncodified or unwritten form of law, but it is binding. Okay, and then lastly, custom. Okay, custom is also unwritten law. Okay. Um, any questions? Any questions? Okay. If there's no questions, I quickly want to go over to Adele. Adele, are you there? Adele, I need assistance quickly. Adele, are you there? Okay, let's just wait on Adele to come online. Um, so, students, in the course reader, I want you to familiarize yourself with the following pages for me, please. From page...
Owen,
Yes, Adele.
I'm right here.
Okay, the following happened now, and you need to assist me with this. There was an error this morning. Okay, I will take full responsibility for it. It should have been not the course I should have presented this morning shouldn't have been Introduction to Law. It should have been the Law of Persons, PVL 1501.
Correct.
Okay. So I picked it up a bit too late, and it wasn't feasible to stop the session and then start with PVL 1501. So I finished the session now. So please, I will take guidance from you during the week on how to make up for the last session of PVL 1501.
Why don't you negotiate this? Well, I see some students have already left. Okay,
Yeah.
what you can do is decide. You've got Thursday and Friday open. You've got more time on a Saturday. So you can either next week extend your session to a 2-hour session with maybe a break in between, and the following Saturday also a 2-hour session or 3-hour session. Doesn't matter. You can tell me how you want to do it, but you just schedule an additional session.
Okay, so can I on Monday morning, on Monday morning, I will contact you telephonically.
Yes.
I will discuss the makeup sessions, and
Okay.
then you will communicate it to the students. Is that
Absolutely.
fine?
That's
Okay.
absolutely fine. Just remember for claim purposes that you must check that I got it right for this date. So this date was again ILW.
That's correct, Adele.
Okay. Okay. All
Okay.
right.
So,
Perfect.
Adele, thank you so much for that. Students, before I log off on Monday, we will now make arrangements for you for the makeup session. And apologies to all of you that I started with the incorrect session. So before I give you additional reading and stuff to go through for me, are there any questions? Okay, you can either raise your hand or put your question into the chat function for me.